Living the good fat life with your hosts Karen and Sherri. They'll help everything align for your body, soul, and mind. The good fat life, whether change comes slow or dramatically. The good fat life will help you sort things out organically.
Every time. It makes me smile. Every time. Our very
Yeah.
own theme song. Thank you, Wally.
Yeah,
Wasn't-
thank you, Wally. It's just soothing.
Yeah. It's
So-
the last podcast of the year.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
No, no. It just feels surreal this year, doesn't it?
It does. Everything does, right?
Yeah, everything does.
Yeah.
It's and so many things.
Things
that
seem
are
so
work-
real, right?
Yeah. And there's so many things that are working really well, and the rest of it we're kind of figuring out.
Yeah,
right?
it sort of gives meaning to that. Was it from Oliver Twist? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Is that the book it's from, or is that the am I
Oh, I
quoting the
don't
wrong
know.
book? Yeah.
I don't know, but
But
yeah,
it's- yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It's got that feel of it,
Yeah.
as well. And well, speaking of the best of times, right?
Yeah.
So we have a guest. Our guest today is Terry Duperon.
Yeah.
From
Welcome.
welcome Terry.
you.
And Terry is got Good Fat Company, which is different than Good Fat Life, right? But they kind of were sisters. So
And
they were
inspirational,
born,
yeah.
and inspirational, and kind of born from the same, we'll say, parents, right?
Right. That's a great way to say it.
They have
Well, you
this-
guys start there. Tell us about
yeah,
that.
we had the same parents. So welcome, Terry.
Yeah,
and
welcome.
Thank you,
yeah,
Sherri and Karen.
yeah, it's great to have you.
Great to be here.
Yeah, so Terry and I started a company called Good Fat Company. I don't 4 years ago, 5 years
It's
ago,
been it's over 5 years now.
5 years ago, and the mission, if you will, was to create a good fat snack.
Yeah.
Right, right, because what we had learned, and that's a whole nother long story, but is that people don't eat enough good fat, and so being that we care about our health and well-being, and we had a really hard time finding good fat snacks. I mean, you can't just haul an avocado around with you, right? I've tried it, and it's just a mush.
It's not very pretty.
It's
no.
not very pretty.
Yeah.
And I think Terry and I bet we looked at 5,000 snack bars,
I don't know.
thousands of them. Just, I mean, everywhere we went, we were in the snack bar aisle looking and reading labels, and it just wasn't there. They either had way too much sugar, or the balance, the ratio between fat and protein and carbs was just out of whack, or they tasted terrible. And so anyways, so Terry, tell us about, talk a little bit about that evolution.
Yeah, it definitely it's an evolution. It's really neat how it's all unfolded with you with the Good Fat Life magazine.
Yeah.
And then with me with the Good Fat Company, where we make the nutritional bars and some other products now too. But yeah, the big thing was in learning about good fat, which until I learned about it, I really didn't know much about it. But the other side was the carbs and the sugar, or if it was a lot of soy or a lot of whey that were in these bars, which I personally didn't care for the flavor profile. So we wanted to create something that was really low carb, that was basically sugar-free, which is becoming a much more common conversation now, where people poo-pooed. They still do. At the farmers markets, some people kind of give you the cross, get away, sugar-free, but it's becoming a much more, a bigger conversation for people in their health. So those were the primary things that we said. We want to create something low carb, something that was super clean, and something that people would feel
That's
great
right.
eating it.
Because we had the hardest time finding really, really clean ingredients.
Yeah.
Remember that? It was
Yes.
finding the highest quality of ingredients, and sourcing them was a huge challenge.
Yes.
And then packaging.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, how do you keep something like that fresh if it's so clean and sugar-free? And, I'm sure that had to be a challenge as well.
It is. We actually went to a lab and got our bars tested. What we really have going for us is because our bars are such a high percentage of cacao butter that it's a very low moisture content. So it's below the level that can grow mold or pathogens and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So that's a big blessing. But cacao butter is very difficult to work with too, because it can change color, it can change profile, the flavor,
And it melts.
and it melts. Yeah,
Shipping. Yes. I mean, actually, as we're talking, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't remember.
You guys
how
were
many
looking
hours?
down the hill, right?
How many hours I spent in the post office, right? Because we were fulfillment, and the hours we spent up at MSU in their
Yes,
packaging
that's
lab.
right.
They
Forgot
have
about
in the
that.
packaging lab, and they also have we are so blessed in this area because we have these amazing universities that have interest in supporting local.
Yes.
And so Terry and I were able to go to MSU, their packaging, packaging, not division.
Their classroom. It was a senior level, like graduate
Yeah.
class or something, where the whole class took on
Our packaging.
Oh, wow.
So they had different groups and they come up with different
Yeah.
concepts, and it was
And the
Did
really
you guys
packaging-
have a certain kitchen you worked in as well? Did you work in
Oh,
like a
that was
scientific-
another
or was
thing.
it your
was
house?
No, we had to find a gluten-free kitchen, commercial kitchen that we could rent space from.
yeah.
Right? Remember that?
Yes.
That was, but the thing I want to say about MSU is that they have one of the best packaging programs in the country. I mean, and whoever thinks about packaging, right?
Right,
As
yeah.
a career.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they have not a hall of fame there for packaging expertise. And just like the football Hall of Fame, you could be in the packaging Hall of Fame. It's like, who knew, right?
right. Yeah.
Right? And they have, and remember we did tasting as well.
Yes, we did.
And sensory, and we had this whole project and process around people tasting things and the mouth feel and this whole rating on tasting and sugar alternatives and
Marketing, it was demographics, and the overall program, which I would recommend to anybody who's a startup in food. MSU is, I mean, it wasn't very expensive. They helped us with their labels, their expertise. Like, these were very senior people in the food space.
So you guys talk us from the beginning. So whose idea was this to start the bars? And did it start at bars, or did you guys get together and go, let's figure something out here for people to eat that's better? Did you guys always know it was going to be bars?
So in the beginning, the doctor that I saw, I was working with a different bar. I was selling it wholesale, and I had placed it in a lot of local health food stores. And I showed it to him. It was an organic bar, and I didn't know about fat really at that point. And he said, no, this is not the right bar for me. And there were a couple ingredients in it that he shared more about that I understood. He says, I'd love to see something that's a high fat, very low carb, and low sugar to zero sugar.
and some protein.
And
protein.
a little
We had to
bit-
get the
we had to get some
macros,
protein,
right?
yeah. So I said, well, let's create one then. And that's where it started from. But it was really that whole idea around fat. Let's create a bar that is focused on fat.
A good, clean,
Yeah.
and easy to pour, easy to carry. So you could throw it in your gym bag, or moms could throw it in their, to give to their kids. Yeah, it is kind of funny when we step back at how many things, and then the lawyers and the trademarking
And all that, yes.
and just the packaging. I had to go out to California to meet with a packaging company.
Wow.
It's because to Terry's point, it's really important when you seal it and how the packaging is sealed, that it keeps the integrity of the taste and the product.
Right.
So there was
All these things you don't think about when you just buy a Cliff Bar, right? Yeah.
And even the Clip Bars, they're because of the content of fat, they don't have necessarily the same challenge. Because it's fat, can go rancid if you don't package it properly, which some of these other bars don't have a lot of fat in them.
Gotcha.
From like
Right.
cacao butter,
Yeah.
real.
right.
fat.
So you guys started out with bars, and then you placed them in different markets. And where's the company now? Talk to us about what Good Fat Company is doing now.
Yeah, sure. So what we're doing now, we actually with my daughter, we've created this whole line of bagels and dessert cakes, and we have other things in the hopper too. And So what we did is she was inspired by what I was doing with the bars and keto, and so she said she's just an amazing cook. So she just started creating things, and people are like, "Oh my God, this is so good!" And then we said, "Okay, we're going to test it at the farmers market," and that's where the true test. And what's evolved is we're beyond keto. We're low carb. We're not like you have to live a 75 carb a day lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. We're for low carb, and we believe in low carb, and I do personally. But now we've expanded to this whole thing around sugar-free, bringing in more protein too, which the cakes do, and which we found for people with diabetes, especially. And diabetes, what we've also found is they like really sweet things. And these are sweet, so and they taste good, and they're very nutrient dense. So that's where expanding our reach more.
So you have the bars. You also have this awesome keto strawberry cheesecake, which I've had the pleasure of trying, and it's delicious.
It is
delicious,
and it's like you can eat that for breakfast and totally fit into
and
your,
it's very filling.
and it's but you can eat it. There's not like a guilt. You have to feel guilty about it, or you're doing something harmful. You're actually providing amazing nutrition for your body. And a couple of things I think I just want to clarify, Terry, is that we started with being keto.
Yes.
Because that's what I mean, that's where we started. But the more knowledge that we took in and the more research we did, we shifted to be high fat, get high quality fat into your diet every day, regardless of whether you're like paleo or low carb or keto or vegan. It doesn't matter. We aren't what do I say, promoting one diet over another. We're just saying you need good healthy fat every day and low carb.
Yeah.
And preferably good sugar alternatives.
And if you can eat it through carrot cake, then Tell us about the collagen part of the carrot cake. Is that good for your skin? Is that why it's called that?
It's good for your skin and your bones and nails, hair. And actually, that was Rachel's idea.
That's great.
I don't know if I ever would have thought of that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So I love how it's evolved. So and just also, so anybody who's wondering, so Terry and I, we ended up splitting basically the company. Terry has the Good Fat Company with all the food products. That's his company with Rachel. And then I have Good Fat Life, which is more educational and experience and workshop kinds of things. And so they are sister companies, like we said. But they came from the same parents, but they're different, but they still support good fat and a good quality life.
Yeah.
So and it's fun, right?
It is fun, and it's a lot of times when companies restructure, do things different, can be very challenging. But what I love to see is that Sherri and I's connection is probably better than ever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we're for each other. We want each other to win. We care about each other. It's a
lift each other up, right?
Yeah.
Well,
it's nice to see.
And I think maybe you could even see from the, just a conversation on getting started, is there's so many skills that go into each of our branches, if you will, and you can't be good at all of them.
Right.
Sure.
And so it's really nice for me. While I love to cook and I really love to eat, it's nice for me that I don't have to worry about those pieces. I can say, "Hey, Terry, I need some bagels. Those are delicious, right?" And they're there. So it's I just think that's nice when you kind of build a community, a network around people doing what they do best.
Yeah.
Talk to us about working with your daughter, because I was at an event recently and you guys were there and it was so lovely to see you guys, and I was so interested in your story. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's actually one of the, definitely a highlight for my adult life, like being older and working with her. And we have really good communication. We have bumps in the road, but we're very committed that our father-daughter relationship is actually number one. And and there's been bumps in the road, and she gets mad at me more. So, but she communicates. Eventually she communicates it, and then it just opens up. And So it's a joy to, and she created the desserts, and it's
So you've got cheesecakes. You got cheesecake, and you've got carrot cake, and you have bagels, and you have good fat snack bars.
our bars, yeah.
Bars, which pumpkin for
Yeah.
holiday. And what are the other flavors of the bars?
So we have dark chocolate peanut, and it's all organic, or the peanuts are even organic. So the bar is a very high percentage organic. We just brought back the lemon ginger turmeric.
Those are
And
good.
we've really and we've added psyllium husk, we've added ashwagandha, and we've added oh my God, I'm forgetting the last one. But so it's very focused on immune, but also emotional help support
Okay.
too. So that we just brought back, and we have the ketodamia bar still, which is with macadamia nuts, and seems like I'm forgetting.
What about the banana? Was there
Oh yeah, we do have the banana nuts
Yeah,
still too.
those
Yeah.
are delicious.
Yeah. So
Do you have plans for the future for new foods? Are you trying different recipes? Are you trying to perfect these and see how they do in the market, or what are you planning for the future as well?
So for the future, yeah. So part of it right now is getting our packaging, and now we're starting to ship stuff out online and see what people's experiences of that is, how we can improve that. But also, I'm working on a project. I've worked on it for a couple of years, which it's a little bit off key, but it's a garden product. Because the biggest thing where I think we're headed as a company is around promoting people getting as much as the fat, but nutrients. And around chronic health and illnesses, the fat is really important, but also getting other nutrients is super important. And with all the food insecurities that people talk about and have, so we were really strong proponents for people growing their own food, and we created a product line for that as well. Haven't figured out how to integrate that into the Good Fat Company. I really want to, but somehow it's going to come together in the future.
Oh, that's interesting. So you have a concept of how people can start growing their own food in like a packaged to help you start that?
It's a micronutrient, so it's a spray. It's a foliar spray, but it's promoted. And I'm working with a good friend of mine, Cliff Schultz is his name, and we're creating an ebook around it, and we're gonna create actually like a 6-month course that we do too. So there's live engagement, people can question and answer. This guy's writing like 100 articles on soil health, and
Oh my gosh, my dad would love him.
oh,
right?
he would.
Yeah.
He would. So we're looking at how can you bring more nutrients into your body, and just looking at recovering from COVID and everything for myself and how I did that. To me, it really is a life and death conversation for a lot of people.
So talk to us about, because you did have COVID, correct?
Yes.
And you're recovering from it
Yes.
still.
Yes.
And talk to us about how much nutrition played a part in your recovery.
I believe it played a big part. The COVID was so bad here, I couldn't even get the monoclonal shot, which I wanted to get. My doctor even called Beaumont, and they were so packed. And by the time they could get me in was past this 10-day window. And so I went and I did research, and my sister, my brother-in-law had it. So I went full on getting nutrients. So I did a lot of ginger, turmeric, and there's a couple specialty supplements I did that are for your lungs, and I believe that played a big role. And
you just said you had a clean bill of health with your lungs.
yeah, I went to my doctor's yesterday, and this has only been 5 weeks, I think 6 weeks, and my lungs are clear. And I went through a time where I'm like, oh my God, do I have long COVID? But it really, the nutrition side of it, and I ate a lot of minerals, nutrients that I knew were important to my recovery.
Well, so with your garden supplies, I'm just curious, Terry. So,
Sure.
so if Karen and I said we're going to grow some vegetables, right? So we planted a little space. Would we just spray? Use your as a spray
On the soil?
on the
It
On the
works
plant?
really well with transplanting.
Okay.
So like you go to the farmer's market, or you're and buy the small plants,
yeah.
and then you would spray the root ball and then spray the soil the first time and
Okay.
plant it. And then you would just every week and a half or so, you would give it a light mist spray on the leaves.
And this
And
is
at the root
nutrients that
base.
you're actually spraying
Yeah,
on?
it's like it's zinc and chrome.
Oh, now I'm
interesting.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
Copper,
ready to have
I'm
a
sorry,
garden.
copper. Yeah, zinc and copper, which zinc is
Great
just
for
look-
COVID. And
and
everything.
notoriously known as to be deficient in people's diet. But we're also focused on other elements too that add to the soil. You know, how you can create the healthiest soil so that you can, because whatever's in the soil is in your food, is the concept behind that.
That's really important because I don't think people realize how we're running out of nutrient soil in the world, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really important.
So I heard a statistic this last week with a person who is very aware of the soil, and they said we had about 60 plantings before
I
we're
believe
out of
it.
out of nutrients. 60 plantings. So is that 30 years?
Yeah, I
Is
was going to
that,
say, how
you
many
know,
years is that seasons or 60
yeah,
seasons?
plantings.
Yeah,
So it
well-
depends on how many you do in a year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's a great organization called the Bionutrient Food. I think it's Bionutrient Food Association. These guys are leading edge agriculture and long history. They actually, with a local company here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, created a device that can measure nutrients. And I think there's 5 or 6 nutrients that they measure, but you can put it up to a piece of fruit at the grocery store or the farmer's market.
Oh my gosh.
And they've tested all over the country. People have shipped stuff in, and the difference from like with one high nutrient dense soil could make the difference of someone eating 1 carrot to having to eat 15 carrots to get the same nutrient
Wow.
value of that plant
Of
from
that
the
carrot.
nutrient dense soil, or that vegetable or fruit. They've done it with blueberries, it's strawberries, and it's so the nutrient dense soil is super important to aspect of getting your nutrients.
Oh my gosh. So can we can buy your spray?
You
Is
can
it
buy
available?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can buy it. It's cleanharvestnutrients.com.
Okay.
You can buy it at the website there now.
Okay.
It's on Amazon too.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
While you're saying, so my dad is a physician, right? He's
Yeah.
an osteopath. He's retired now. But he loved cows, right? So I was raised on a farm, and my dad traveled to different parts of the world, Argentina and
oh wow.
Russia and China and different places studying grass.
Yeah.
Japan, the finest grass on the planet, and he over 50 years created this farm that has the finest nutrition soil.
Yeah.
But it's that's been a labor of love all his life, and so his blade of grass is incredibly dense and nutritious, and he rotates the cows the way it's supposed to.
And he's really interested in the cow pies, right? Because
exactly.
the grass, right?
But so I go visit Dad, and we look at cow pies because it's the ecosystem. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So I love what you're saying, but I wanted to. So I can't wait to share this product with him because that will really make his heart sing. As a man who's spent his life on building great soil,
Yeah.
right? And the importance of it. But the other part I wanted to bring back is like with you and your daughter to be able to work together. So my dad and I are working together.
Yeah.
Right?
Are you?
So he's like my head researcher on good fat because he's got the doctor scientist brain and he's an avid learner and he spends hours and hours and hours reading studies and reviews and peer reviews and all kinds of stuff on the impact of good fat, good soil,
Yeah.
on our health and well-being. And it's fascinating. So it's, one of the things we talk about a lot is how we create the life that we want to live.
Yeah.
And part of it for me and for you was being able to work with our families in a way that elevated, lifted everybody, that lifted
Yeah.
people up, lifted the world up, if you will, in our little way,
Yeah.
in the little way that we could. So,
And I actually, from working together, has deepened our relationship too.
sure.
So, it's just talk, and from shifting to, it just deepened the connection, it deepened the relationship, and that's where the joy comes from.
Right. You get to have a relationship that isn't just superficial.
Yeah.
You know, it's not transactional. It's you know, like, okay, I'll see you, or we'll eat this, or the weather's doing whatever.
Right.
Right? It's like,
Right.
man, you
Have
know,
a mission.
exactly. It just is, and there's something really wonderful about it. It's a legacy.
There is something to be said. I think people are they're searching. I think people do want missions more. They want to work as a team, especially now because they've been sort of isolated and feeling alone. But I think that's so important. So I'm so glad you guys are doing that with your families. You know.
Thank you.
So you also in your bio you talked about you've been on a spiritual journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. What do I want to say about that? It's I feel like I've actually been on a spiritual journey since I was a little kid.
Right.
Seems like.
Maybe since we were born. Right?
Maybe. It seems to be more
Or before we were born.
before we were born.
Probably.
Right. Yeah.
I think I started to feel it like when I was maybe 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I really try to make that the foundation for everything. A lot of it's focused on, like the meditation side is around awareness practice, and which ultimately the end goal is to help people and see my own self-centeredness, see my own narcissism, and but also to help other people with what they're struggling with. So that's a big part of my. It's not really a religious. It's much more of a. Seems much more simple than that for me.
Mm-hmm. It's sort of your mission, right?
Yeah, it's my mission. Yeah.
Can you talk to us about how you knew around 5 or 6? Because I actually remember the first time I felt there was a God and thought, oh, and I was around 5 or 6 as well. Do you remember that moment?
Something when I was a kid, I was in my room and something happened, and I don't know. Something just seemed to, like, I think it was a very difficult situation, and maybe it was some reprieve or something that, some comfort, maybe.
Yeah, but you kind of remember that time, and
I do.
Yeah, that's interesting. What about you, Sherry?
Oh,
Do you remember any time in your life where you're like, the
yeah.
first time it kind of sunk in?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I always had, I feel like I had those moments around education in a way, like being at a university or being somewhere that was just like, I don't know, it was so much bigger than me, right? This sense of awe, like, oh my gosh, this is so, like, we went to, I'm from Spokane. And so, like, even being at, like, Gonzaga University and just on the university, and it's funny you asked that because it's like you start thinking about things, right? Being and just the awe of just bigger.
Yeah.
How about you?
I remember astronauts came to my school, and I was in kindergarten, and they were talking about how there's a vibration in the air, and if you be really, really quiet, you can hear it. And somehow they got all the kindergartners in the gym to be quiet, and I heard that, boo, and I thought, and it just, like, everybody fell away, and I had that silence, like, with God for a second, and I was like, oh, wow, you know? And sometimes I have that moment, and I still hear that, and it's almost like I'm communicating with myself at that time in a strange way. It's like all those God points sort of connect, or the universe or whatever. But I remember that specifically. I knew right then and there, you know. And when I feel that again, it's almost like it takes me back. It's like I feel like I'm communicating with those times in my life, you know.
Yeah.
It's interesting, yeah. But I think too, the universe and the things that light you up spiritually are always there. Like, you love to learn, right?
Yeah.
And you love nutrition, and that is our gifts, right, that we've gotten from the universe or God or whoever you say, and that's what you bring out into the world. So it's so great you guys know your mission and you're sticking to that plan. Because even we've talked to Rob here too, and he's talked about his mission and the why, right?
Yeah.
You guys have sort of your why. And did you start having your why when you were younger, when you were spiritual? Was it? Did you always know you're going to be into nutrition? And when did you start getting into that?
It's really when I started to learn about it and then practice it, and then I could feel the difference in my health. No, it was always around helping people, though. Something around some connection or something that would make a difference.
Have you always been an entrepreneur, Terry, or did you do something? Did you work for a different company before?
I think I've always been an entrepreneur. My dad is entrepreneur, So if it's,
Yeah, his dad's amazing.
yeah, he's a really brilliant, amazing guy. And I've always been very entrepreneurial. I worked for a company for a long time, but I was very entrepreneurial in how I worked with them and the way I did things. So I think I've been an entrepreneur most of my life.
And how long have you been doing Good Fats for? Just for 5 years?
It's coming up on 6 years.
Is it really?
It's coming up on 6 years.
The time goes by so fast.
Yeah.
Well, I think with the last 2 years, it's like we kind of lost. It went into a, I don't know, limbo-y land or something.
Yeah. How has COVID changed the way you do business?
Actually, COVID was a real eye opener for me, because the one really difficult thing about COVID, which I experienced anyways, is like you're so fatigued. There's no motivation. And for me anyways, I was looking at my life and what was working, what wasn't working. And so one of the things that I've struggled with a long time and has been brought up to me many times is around attention and attention deficit and stuff. And so it's like, okay, Terry, you're going to have to deal with this. I thought I could do it with my meditation. And, but there's just something going through that made things more clear to me. And it's like, all right, I'm not a young kid anymore. If you want to grow this and if you want to make a difference, and like now I feel much more responsible to my family, to Rachel and her investments. So now I'm really looking at attention deficit, podcast, the doctor, all of it. And COVID was really the turning point. And I wake up like, okay, life is precious, and this could go different ways, and there's no real controlling it. So, and there's some ways to manage it and work with it, but in the big picture, we just don't know. That's, I think,
That's so
honest
From
truth.
second to second.
Yeah, second
right?
to
Yeah,
second,
we don't
right.
know. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing is to, if you know your mission and that you want to help people and your general mission, that always remains true, right? No matter how many changes come and go.
Yeah.
You sit that core value.
It actually, I think it deepens. It just deepens. It just gets more rooted, and it's very powerful. Start to care a little bit less about what other people think or would say about you. That your mission starts to grow more important.
And it starts to become more crystal clear, right?
Yeah.
And sort of the things that distract you from it sort of fall away, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really
Have you
do.
experienced that, Sherri?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Very much so. In the best of ways.
Yeah.
Right? Like even we were playing Chinese checkers with our grandkids.
I love Chinese checkers.
I know. and I was just, there's just a moment where I'm just like, this is the best ever, you know? And to your point about not getting younger, it's like, well, I'm in like total denial about that. I choose to say I am getting older, not old, older, but being around the kids and the way that they're up and down and up and down and right, Grandma, let's play on the floor, and you go, let's play off the table, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It just doesn't feel good to sit up and down on the floor. Right?
Yeah.
It's just little things, and I just noticed that with, and I'm going to blame it on COVID because we've been more in our homes and we haven't been out and about as much. And so I'm just noticing different things about physically strength, you know, that it's a priority. It has to be a priority to be building strength.
Yes.
And it's easy not to. To your point, it's like, it's just easy not to.
Especially when society is now, you know, pushing everything is, you know, a soft jogging pant, a tennis shoe, everything. Sort of like society is sort of pushing you to be more sedentary in a lot of ways. So it's really
Comfy.
and comfy, yeah.
That's a good
and
point.
and so it's really important to keep motivated because you could really ease right into that. I mean, even if you just look at the fashion industry, just as telling, you know, you know.
No, that's a great point, Karen, because it definitely has changed.
And so it's really important for us to stick to our missions and motivate each other. And when we see people sort of like, hey, are you, you know, to sort of check in because it's real easy to fall into that, especially if you're not feeling well, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. And it's insidious. it's that, it's that frog in the hot water that's starting to boil versus jumping into the hot water.
It really is insidious, because when you don't feel good, you don't have the energy and the
Do
motivation
anything.
to do what you need to do that would help you to feel
Better. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, I have to say I am, it was perfect having you as our guest, because you'll be we're ending the year and starting the new year with you, Terry. And I'm excited about a garden, right? Having
Yeah.
some garden and
having,
eating and having
cheesecake.
strawberry cheesecake for
Yes.
breakfast.
And our skin looking beautiful as we eat carrot cake.
Exactly. And all the things in between. It just is, well, and just the camaraderie, you know,
Yeah.
the camaraderie that we all share, and and is also like the journey. You know, we've been through a lot
Yeah.
with this to build this company. These
Yes.
companies. It's
Yes.
and it if we go back to kind of the spiritual conversation, in the sense of it wasn't like we woke up one day. Well, we kind of did. I mean, it wasn't like we were young and said, "Oh, this is what my life ambition is." But everybody knew. We all share that it's been around helping people
Yeah.
in some capacity,
Yeah.
right? And it's evolved. But we also listened when we heard those little voices saying, "Well, this is what I'd like to do," even though maybe we didn't know how, or we were scared, or all the above. We still had the courage to step into it.
And you
Right.
saw a need for yourself and for your families, and you went out and you built it. And not only did you build it, but you built it with your families, right? So that's I guess that's really the secret to success, right? If you can do it that way,
I
there you
think,
go.
yeah, it's kind of like we talk about, living the good fat life,
Creating
and,
your own path.
and creating our good fat lives, right?
Yeah. It definitely deepens the joy and the connection, and which we all want.
Yeah.
Right.
And it
Right.
also it also deepens the responsibility and the frustrations as well. However, when it comes to your mission and to your family, there's no more motivation than that, right?
Right.
So I think people think, oh, if you have your own business and you're spiritual and all these things, you're never going to have any problems. No, that's not true. It's just a different level.
it's
It's
not
just
true.
a different, in fact, it's more meaningful, right? Yeah. So thank you so much for being out there. And I love that you guys are doing this. And I look forward to trying the new things you guys come out with. And we hope we can support you in any way.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you so much, you
so
guys.
that said, if somebody wants to get some good fat cheesecake and
Carrot cake.
carrot cake and
Bagels,
bagels and snacks, how do they find you?
Goodfatcompany.com. That's the easiest way to
Okay.
find us.
Okay.
And then you
And
can
we're on social too.
Okay.
Okay. And then also don't forget to go to www.goodfatlife.com and click on to get a free digital subscription, or you can go to our QR code and you can also get a hard copy to your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that happy note, Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy
Happy
New Year.
New Year,
Happy
and-
Happy New Year. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me. This
Thank you
has
for
been
being
Yeah.
just a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's go off and eat good fat and live our good fat life.
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely.